Hey, it's John Lee Dumas of EO Fire, and it's The Entrepreneurial You, the show for dedicated and passionate Caribbean entrepreneurs seeking daily inspiration, brought to you by author, speaker, and award-winning entrepreneur Heneka Watkis-Porter. You must be prepared to ignite.
We needed to raise capital, but our experience with local financial institutions was that they were cautious and slow to act, and interest rates were far too high. We had real concerns about financing our business through outside equity investors and the possibility of interference. Could we get a fair valuation for our business? We had our own ideas about the business and its value. Should I go the traditional route of bank financing, or should I try the Jamaica Stock Exchange? So we made a call and experienced transformation of our business through conversations. I'm John Mafood, CEO of Jamaican Teas, and we're listed on the Jamaica Stock Exchange.
Give us a call today at 876-967-3271 to begin your transformation through conversation. We want to see your company listed on the Jamaica Stock Exchange.
Coming up on this episode of The Entrepreneurial You,
I tell people all the time, when it comes to getting publicity, when it comes to getting your story heard, it starts with you. It starts where we are as entrepreneurs, as women, as people, right? It starts with where we are on the inside. And so before you begin to write anything down, before you begin to think about who you need to connect with, you first need to realize and understand, and I say this all the time in my webinars, that you are pitchable and that you have a story. Everyone has a story on the inside of them.
hi everybody, my peak performers. Good day to you. How are you doing? Welcome to episode 135 of the Entrepreneurial You podcast. I'm Heneka Watkis-Porter. Now, today's episode is, of course, with another amazing guest, and she is Lindsey Walker. She's a survivor of stage 4 cancer. Yes, beat cancer. Yes, love that. She's a product of Jackson State University. She's a founder of Walker and Associates Media Group. Now, working with brands such as 135th Street Agency, BET, securing press in today's top tier publications, TV networks, and more. Lindsey has established herself as an expert in the world of PR, branding, and entrepreneurship. I'm really looking forward to this conversation that we're going to be having on how to craft a story the press will care about. We all need to get press coverage for whatever it is that we're doing. So we're looking forward to have that conversation. Welcome, Lindsey.
Thank you so much for having me.
It is my absolute pleasure. And before we dive in, as a true Jamaican, a very authentic Jamaican, I love everything about my culture. I love our people. I just love Jamaica, right? And I want to get from my guests, which I always try to get, and I'm trying to get from you today. Do you know anything about Jamaica? Any music, any food, anything that stands out for you?
Yes. So I love Jamaican food. I got introduced to it a couple of years ago. So now my go-to is always like, okay, let me get some rice and peas. Let me get some, beef patties. Let me get some curry chicken, some jerk chicken. So I love, and oxtails are pretty good too. So yes, I love Jamaican food. I have not had a chance to visit as of yet, but I definitely plan to.
All right. So you're absolutely living vicariously through the food. Okay. Because yes, when I hear you talk all about, the beef patty and the jerk chicken and the jerk pork and the rice and peas, you're a legit Jamaican. Take it from me. All right, so let's move into how to craft a story the press will care about, because that's what we all want. We all want media coverage for whatever it is that we're doing, right? Even some of us who pretend like we don't like the publicity and we don't like to be, we want to get media feature and press for what it is that we're doing. So your love for connecting brands with consumers and the media, like it led you into that career of public relations. What inspired this love for media, Lindsey?
Yeah, so I have just always loved to write. I've always loved, I've journaled since I was a little girl, and that kind of turned into me. I always thought I was going to be a writer. I thought I was going to be a journalist, but I got an opportunity when I was in my senior year of high school to participate in the minority journalism workshop. And I chose public relations because I'd read this fiction book about how this girl was an amazing publicist and she got to travel. So I was like, that seems interesting. Let me just see what it's all about. And I fell in love with it. I got to, put together press releases and a mock press conference. And so that was what really kind of led me to like, okay, this is what I want to do. Let me major in this in college. I did tons of internships. And so from there, I just, I've been consumed. Like, I just love everything about communications, everything about the public relations industry. Like, I love it, love it, love it.
Wow. And just hearing you talk about it, it shows your passion is coming through, the fact that it's something that is very near and dear to your heart. Is no wonder you're speaking that way. No wonder you've had the success that you've had. And speaking of success, I just want you to share with us some of the successes you've had throughout your career. Of course, I've mentioned some of them in the intro, but I want you to just take us a little further and deeper into some of those successes.
Yeah, so I have had just the amazing privilege to work with awesome, women and men in business who are creatives, who are entrepreneurs, who are, filmmakers and directors and working in the spirits industry and music artists. I've had, just the great privilege of connecting them and, working with editors to get their stories told. So I've had, my clients featured in everywhere from the New York Times and Essence and Black Enterprise. And the list just kind of goes on and on. CBS This Morning, ABC, Fox. And so I'm really, really proud of the work that I've been able to do within the past 7 years of being a full-time publicist, full-time entrepreneur, and having my business.
All right. So you're proud of the work that you've done. And of course, I'm listening and I'm extremely proud of it too. And I'm sure those of my peak performance community who are also listening, they are extremely proud and yay, you go, Lindsey. Right.
Thank you.
So, right. So you've told us the what, and you've told us your passion, how passionate you're about it, the genesis that you've had, some of the people that you're working for in terms of their, career, the genre that they're in. I'm really excited to go deeper. And by deeper, I mean what we're really talking about is how to craft that story that the media will care about. And you've had success in that area. So now I need to understand, my peak performers need to understand, now that you've done all of those things, give us some insight into the how. How can we take a somewhat seemingly mundane story that, nobody perhaps would care about and craft it in a way that the media, the press would want to pick it up, because that's what we're about. We want to get highlighted. We want to get our, whatever it is, our work or, life's work featured. Tell us how to go about that. And at this point, you can take your time and just take us through some actionable step-by-step process of doing that.
Yes, absolutely. And I love that you said that, because at the end of the day, it's all about implementation. It's all about taking action. And so I tell people all the time, when it comes to getting publicity, when it comes to, getting your story heard, it starts with you. It starts where we are as entrepreneurs, as, women, as people. Right. It starts with where we are on the inside. And so before you begin to write anything down, before you begin to, think about who you need to connect with, you first need to realize and understand. And I say this all the time in my webinars, that you are pitchable and that you have a story. Everyone has a story on the inside of them. And because we go through so many different things, sometimes we discount ourselves, with, oh my gosh, well, this person's doing this, or this person just got featured in Forbes. Well, I could never do that. And the reality is you can. So what I tell people is that take a look at where you are right now in your life, in your business. Think about why you're in business. Think about who you serve, and think about why you serve them. So you're going to take those three things, the who, the why, and the other why you serve them, why you're in business, and who they are. You're going to write those three things down on a piece of paper, and you leave room to fill in the blank. So, if I'm a publicist and I work with beauty and lifestyle brands, I'm going to really focus on why I do that. You know what I mean? I'm going to focus on what my clients really get from working with me. Or if you have, a beauty brand yourself, you would focus on, okay, wow, I have this amazing nail polish. I created it because, maybe my daughter was allergic to the chemicals that are in other nail polishes. And so I created this vegan line. And so once you take time out and you really gain clarity on where you are, on who you serve, then you'll be able to kind of pinpoint and say, okay, this is how I can craft my story. Because the press, and, whether it's editors, whether it's different writers, everyone wants to have a story that they can relate to and that resonates with them. And so crafting a story that they're going to care about, that has to include 3 to 5 things. Number one, it has to capture their attention and it has to garner interest. Number 2, it needs to speak to, is this something new? So maybe you're working on a book and maybe your book is going to come out in January. Well, now, it's the perfect time to start thinking about what you're going to pick. What are some of the topics in your book? Like, what are some of your whys? So you need to focus on number 1, what's going to capture their attention? Number 2, is it new? Is it timely? And number 3, why should they care about it? So again, if we're going back to the vegan nail polish example, I'm going to be extremely, extremely clear and strategic on who I am reaching out to. So I'm not going to reach out to just everybody and anybody, right? There's a strategy, there's a process. And so crafting a story that the press is going to care about means that not only is it about the story itself, but it's also about who you're telling the story to. Those are the major 2 components. What's the story and who you're telling the story to? Those are just a couple of things. Number 1, get clear. Number 2, make sure that you know your why behind everything. Make sure that, you're telling new news to the press because they want to know the latest and greatest. If you released a book or if you had a product launch that was even 6 or 8 months ago, to them, that's old. You always want to focus on what's new.
I hear you. And of course, that sounds theoretically great and amazing, all of that. Now, let's take, for example, one of my community members, perhaps they're writing a new book, and they're launching it and they have a great pitch. But so too is 1,000 other people writing perhaps to a particular editor. How do you get noticed, and who are the gatekeepers? How do you get past the gatekeepers? Because sometimes I recognize that it's not necessarily about, having a great story. It's also having to pass the gatekeepers. It's also having to, maybe know somebody on the inside so that you can perhaps jump a hoop or 2. How do you get to that phase? Assuming that everything else, all other factors are held constant.
Great question. So this is where we get down to the nitty gritty of it. This is what separates who really wants amazing press for their business and who's just a talker, right? Because the thing about it, and you're absolutely correct, is that editors get thousands and thousands of pitches. And so it's like, wow, like how do I separate myself from the pack? And honestly, this is where the follow up comes into place. A lot of times, especially if you're doing your own PR, you need to figure out like who the people are. So that takes a lot of research. That takes a lot of time of figuring out, okay, let's say that Brittany is an editor at Black Enterprise, but she doesn't cover books, right? She covers something else. Well, you want to go for the person that writes books. Not only do you want to go for the person that writes books, but you want to go for the person that writes books about your particular topic. So a lot of times I always tell people you need to figure out and look at where your competition has been featured, or who you most like associate your brand with. Where have they been featured? What are some things that they missed in the article that you can kind of piggyback on and then start to build those relationships? We're in a great time right now, as entrepreneurs, because our access is a little bit easier than years prior because we have social media. We're in a digital age. So, do your homework in terms of figuring out, okay, well, I know that maybe there's a writer named Jasmine for Essence, and she covers books and she covers the exact topic. So you want to start to see, what she talks about on Instagram, like what's personal to her. People have their email info like right there on their pages. So, make sure that you're doing your homework, make sure that you're making those connections. And then from there, when you are ready to send your pitch out, it's not just about sending it out one time, because I think that that's where people make the mistake. They think like, okay, let me just send this one time and then yay, oh no, they didn't give back to me. It must be me. No, this takes a lot of follow-up. So it may mean sending a pitch, waiting at least a week or two, following back up with them like, hey, are you interested in this story? And if they don't get back to you, at least by the end of the month, then find another person that writes for that publication, and pitch them too. Like, it's all a process. It's all about the follow-up. It's all about the follow-up, and it's all about, being consistent in your effort.
And as I'm listening to you talk to, one of the things that stuck out to me as well, or just came to mind, was that sometimes we think that things are going to be much more difficult than they actually are. And here's why I say that. No, I contribute to the Leadercast blog. We have a relationship, and I'm a writer for the Leadercast blog. I wanted to start writing for other publications, and then I decided I'm going to start writing. I want to write for Thrive Global. Now, when I submitted my article, because when I read what was required to submit a post, they even went as far as saying it's okay to have publications that were published elsewhere before, as long as you have that caveat. And so I literally submitted my first post, one that I already written somewhere else, submitted to them, and I kid you not, within less than 2 hours, I got back an email to say that, with the link, to say, here's the link to your published article. I was blown away because, and it just reminds me that too many times we think that something has to be and will be extremely difficult without us even trying. So we make that assumption, right? What I also want to talk about because I'm listening to you a lot, and we know the technical aspects of it is important, and you've mentioned some of the hows and, how we can go about it. But I want to also touch a little on the relationship aspect of things, developing what are some of the tips and insights that you can give into developing relationships with some of these publications. No, you're not friending them because you want to have an insight, but you're building relationship with them so that, because the closer you are to somebody, the more you know them, the more you can supply what it is that they're actually looking for. So how do you go about building some of those relationships that will, can bear fruit in the long term?
It's all about social media. It's not about pestering, right? It's not about, liking every post or commenting on everything, but really, really having genuine conversations with people, even outside of you needing or wanting something from them. Like there is a writer for a site that I, love and that our clients have been featured on, but she and I have dialogue often just based on what she posts, on her Instagram stories. And so it's about being authentic as you're building those relationships. Like I remember, honestly, that was one of the things that scared me when I first started, because you always hear people saying that public relations is about relationships, and it is. But, you can build those things as you go along. You know what I mean? And just be genuine and be open. Like people can tell when you want something from them and when you're just being honest and like, hey, thank you for sharing your story, or I'm so glad that you talked about X, Y, and Z. Just be genuine about it. Don't be afraid to send a DM. Don't be afraid to just send an email, not hey, can you feature me? But oh my gosh, your story really resonated with me. And then take it offline as well. If you guys are in the same city, can we meet for coffee? Can we meet for lunch? Invite them out to an event. You know what I mean? Like it's all about building relationships just as you would with someone that, you are interested in building a friendship with, or someone that you're interested in dating. You know what I mean? Like it's the same type of premise.
And how did you over the years refine your craft? Because clearly, I mean, you've been doing this a while and it didn't happen overnight. So what were some of the things that you had to do to refine your craft so that when you pitch a story to an editor, to one of these top media houses, they were able to give you the second look?
Yeah. I mean, it's all about, knowing what they're looking for. Right. So if I'm pitching a film, that has, a bit of a celebrity name attached to it, I know that, because of the people that are in the film, they're going to be interested. And honestly, like sometimes it's just a matter of being in the right space with the right people in the right moment. And I say that because, when I first started out, like one of my first placements was with Vibe magazine, and I was working with a choreographer that was Ashanti, an R&B singer's creative director at the time. So, sometimes it's just about being connected with the right type of project that has really, really helped. Or my client that we got featured in the New York Times, just kind of knowing that you have a story that's interesting, and something that hasn't been told from that particular angle, because she is in the spirits industry. And just again, kind of like I was telling you guys and doing my research, I noticed that they wrote about a brand that had some ties to, African Americans, and, just being a part of the distilleries from the early 1800s. And so I kind of was able to, say, hey, like I checked out the article. I love the article. I also have this client that I think you may be interested in. And, just kind of used the knowledge that I had to help me craft the story that way.
We are about to wrap our conversation right now, Lindsey, and I'm going to give you this opportunity to share your final thoughts and frame those thoughts around that, what we've been talking about, how to create that story that the press will care about. Nail some points home that perhaps we didn't get to talk about before. Bring that home. And then after you've done that, I'm going to ask you to share your contact details with my community, as well as you did mention that you have a free publicity guide to share with our audience. So go right ahead. Take it away.
Absolutely. So the number one thing that I want you guys to remember is that you are pitchable, and everyone has a story inside of them. And that you definitely, as an entrepreneur, whether you are full-time, part-time, just starting out, you need to make sure that you are maintaining a sense of visibility, and that you're building relationships with people that are able to help you, and you help them as well, get to the next level when it comes to, crafting a story. And Even if you feel like, wow, maybe I failed at this, like that's still a part of your story. And so don't be afraid to pull from those sticky situations that you've had, and looking at your accomplishments as well, because people do care about it. It's just all about how you position it within your particular marketplace.
Sounds great. All right. Now for sharing your contact details and your freebie.
Yes. So for the freebie, you guys can go to www.subscribepage.com/no-budget-publicity. Again, that is subscribepage.com/no-budget-publicity. And I have a guide for you guys on how you can get publicity with a $0 budget. Super excited about this. And as far as contacting me, make sure that you guys are following me on Instagram. I am at Lynn, that's LYNNPR Mentality. And if you'd like to shoot me an email, you can do so at hi, that's HI, Walker, WALKER, Assoc, ASSOC, mediagroup.com.
All righty. And my friends, if you're having a little difficulty remembering, of course, you can always hit replay, but you can also check out the show notes at the bottom of it. All the links to Lindsey's information will be there, including how to contact her, how to get that freebie that she's mentioned. And I'm sure it will be very useful to you. Lindsey Walker, it has certainly been a pleasure. And I truly want to thank you for spending time with me this day.
You are more than welcome. It's been a pleasure as well. So thank you again for having me.
Absolutely. And my peak performers, guess what? It's the end of this episode. Yes, episode 135 with Lindsey Walker. And I truly want to thank you so much for tuning in and for keeping company with me. And I know that you've been enjoying the episode. So I'm going to ask you for one little favor. Will you please share it with your friends, subscribe in Apple Podcasts, and leave a review as well. And if you want to contribute to the work that I'm doing, this episode is free. You know that I put a lot of love into each episode as I share them with you. But if you'd want to make a contribution, you can donate as little as $5. Just scroll to the bottom of the show notes page and the link will be there. Remember, you were born to win, but to be a winner, you must plan to win, prepare to win, and expect to win. Walk good. Want to start your podcast but not sure where to host it? Go to HenekaWatkis-Porter.com and claim your 1 month for hosting on Blueberry. Or if you already have your host but aren't getting statistics on your podcast, you can claim 1 month free stats from HenekaWatkis-Porter.com. Go ahead and sign up now.